High observer Xilax stood before the massive quantum display, his crystalline form refracting light across the observation chamber as he studied Earth's latest technological breakthrough. The humans had just achieved quantum entanglement communication, centuries ahead of the expected timeline. His assistant, Naira, hovered nervously beside him, her bioluminescent tentacles pulsing with anxiety. "They've done it again," Xilax whispered, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of observation. "Third breakthrough this solar cycle. The probability matrices didn't predict this for at least another 50 years. The Galactic Council's Department of Emerging Species had watched Earth for millennia, categorizing humans as just another primitive species stumbling toward the stars. But something had changed in the last century. The pace of human advancement had become exponential, defying all known models of civilizational development. In the depths of the Council's orbital station, Ambassador James Harrison sat in his cramped office, unaware of the surveillance but not of the patronizing attitudes. He'd been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 3 years, though representative was a generous term for what amounted to a glorified cultural liaison position. The Council had deemed humanity too primitive for full diplomatic relations, allowing them only observer status in galactic affairs. James sipped his coffee, reviewing the latest rejection of Earth's petition for access to clean energy technology. The Council cited developmental concerns and cultural readiness metrics, the same bureaucratic nonsense they always used. What they didn't know was that Earth scientists had already reverse-engineered similar technology from studying the waste left behind by careless alien ships. Meanwhile, in the Council's restricted archives, Naira discovered something disturbing. "High Observer," she called out, her tentacles now a pale shade of worry. "I've been analyzing the pattern of human advancement, their failures. They learn from them faster than any species we've encountered. Where others see setbacks, they see data points." Xilax moved to her console, his crystalline structure dimming as he processed the information. The humans had turned each technological dead end into a new path forward. Their spacecraft designs had evolved from laughably primitive to surprisingly innovative in mere decades. Their quantum computing solutions, while unorthodox, were beginning to rival some member species systems. "What troubles me most," Xilax said, "is their ability to adapt our own technology. Remember the incident with the Kraxan merchant vessel that crashed near their Mars colony?" Naira's tentacles curled in recognition. The humans had claimed to have merely salvaged basic materials from the wreck. But within months, their entire solar system network had been upgraded with suspiciously familiar quantum encryption protocols. In his office, James received an unexpected visit from Delegate Vorn, a member of the reclusive Arcturian species. The tall, avian-like being closed the door with unnecessary care. "Ambassador Harrison," Vorn whispered, "I come with a warning. The Council's inner circle is meeting about Earth. Some members are advocating for containment protocols." James maintained his poker face, a human skill that had served him well in alien politics. "Containment? That seems excessive for a primitive species like us." Vorn's feathers rustled with discomfort. "They've noticed patterns. Your quantum communication achievement today, it's caused quite a stir. Some believe humans are receiving outside help, violating development protocols." What Vorn and the Council didn't realize was that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't stolen technology or secret allies. It was something far simpler and more powerful: the human drive to prove others wrong. In a secure facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Alina Wright led a team working on the next project that would shatter the Council's expectations. The quantum bridge device they were developing wouldn't just communicate across space, it would fold it. The Council thought humanity was barely ready for interstellar communication. They weren't prepared for humans to simply step across the galaxy. High Observer Xilax concluded his daily report with an unprecedented recommendation. The human species represents an anomaly in developmental patterns. Their ability to adapt, combine, and improve upon technologies suggests either external interference or— He paused, his crystalline form pulsing with uncertainty. "Or we may need to reevaluate our entire understanding of species advancement." As the report made its way through council bureaucracy, James Harrison was already preparing Earth's next move. The quantum bridge would be ready within months, and with it, humanity would force the galaxy to acknowledge them as equals. The council thought they were observing a primitive species taking its first steps into a larger universe. Instead, they were watching a force of nature preparing to reshape the galaxy. Little did they know, humanity's rise was about to accelerate beyond anyone's predictions, and their careful observations would soon become obsolete in the face of human ingenuity and determination. The quantum bridge test was scheduled for midnight. Dr. Alina Wright stood before the massive array of equipment, each piece representing months of human innovation and determination. The underground facility hummed with energy as technicians made final adjustments to the experimental device that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. "Primary systems are ready," announced Dr. Marcus Chen, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Quantum matrix is stable at 99.8%. Alina took a deep breath, knowing that somewhere above them, council observers were probably monitoring Earth's energy grid, completely unaware of what was about to happen. The facility's quantum shielding, reverse-engineered from the Kraxon wreck, kept their true activities hidden. In his orbital office, James Harrison was preparing for the diplomatic chaos that would follow. He'd arranged a routine meeting with the Council's Transportation Committee, scheduled precisely when the quantum bridge would activate. The timing had to be perfect. High Observer Xylax was growing increasingly agitated. His latest reports about human advancement had been repeatedly ignored by the Council's inner circle. "They're blind to the pattern," he told Naira as they monitored Earth's communications. "Humans don't just adapt technology, they transform it." Naira's tentacles twisted in agreement. "The latest data shows their energy consumption has increased by 300% in restricted frequencies. They're clearly conducting experiments beyond their approved technological level." "The Council won't act," Xylax replied, his crystalline form clouding with frustration. "They're too convinced of their own superiority to see the threat or the opportunity." In the testing chamber, Alina initiated the final sequence. The quantum bridge hummed to life, its exotic materials warping local spacetime in ways that should have been impossible for primitive humans to achieve. "Bridge stability at 100%, Marcus reported, his voice tight with excitement. "Ready for first test transmission." James walked into the Transportation Committee meeting, hiding his anticipation behind practiced diplomacy. The committee members, a collection of various species who prided themselves on controlling all interstellar travel, barely acknowledged his presence. "Ambassador Harrison," drawled Committee Chair Drelks, his gelatinous form rippling with barely concealed disdain. "I believe you wish to discuss humanity's petition for improved solar system transport technology." "Actually," James smiled, checking his watch, "I'm here to demonstrate why we no longer need your approval." At that exact moment in the facility beneath the Pacific, Alina gave the command, "Activate quantum bridge." The effect was immediate and unprecedented. Across the galaxy, quantum sensors blazed with activity as space itself briefly folded. In the committee chamber, every alien communication device suddenly screamed with alerts. "What have you done?" Drelks demanded, his translator barely keeping up with his agitated frequencies. James stood calmly as chaos erupted around him. "We've just established instantaneous communication and transport capabilities across 50 light-years of space, without your permission, oversight, or technology." In the testing facility, Alina and her team watched as their test probe transmitted perfect, real-time data from a position near Alpha Centauri. The quantum bridge hadn't just worked, it had exceeded their most optimistic projections. The Council's emergency response was predictably bureaucratic. Within hours, 17 different committees had convened to discuss the human situation. Xylax found himself summoned before the inner circle, his warnings now suddenly relevant. "How did we miss this?" demanded Council Elder Vrix, her energy form flickering with agitation. "How did they achieve quantum bridging without detection?" "We didn't miss it," Xylax replied. We chose to ignore it. Every report I filed showed their potential. We were too focused on maintaining control to see they had already surpassed it. In the following days, the galaxy's careful power structure began to crack. Other developing species, inspired by humanity's breakthrough, began questioning the Council's authority. Underground networks of information sharing sprung up, bypassing official channels. James found his tiny office suddenly very popular, with representatives from various species seeking private meetings. Many brought their own technological innovations, hidden from the Council's restrictive oversight. Eliner's team continued refining the quantum bridge, pushing its capabilities further. They discovered that the technology could be miniaturized, potentially allowing for personal transport devices. The implications were staggering and terrifying to a council built on controlling the flow of species and technology. They'll try to stop us, Marcus warned during a late-night testing session. The council won't just accept losing control. Eliner smiled, making final adjustments to their latest prototype. Let them try. They don't understand that their restrictions only made us more creative. Every barrier they put up became a puzzle for us to solve. In his observation chamber, Xylax received an unexpected visit from Naira. Her tentacles glowed with excitement as she shared her latest analysis. The quantum bridge wasn't their end goal, she explained. It's just the beginning. I've detected preparations for something much larger. Xylax studied the data, his crystalline form brightening with realization. The humans weren't just breaking free of the Council's restrictions. They were preparing to reshape the entire galactic order. And perhaps, he thought, it was about time. The Meridian system blazed with weapons fire as the Council's enforcement fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 30 warships, each bristling with enough firepower to level a continent, moved to surround the handful of human research vessels. Admiral Kraz of the Hegemony forces allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Finally, the Council had authorized action against these upstart humans. This is your only warning, he broadcast. Your presence in this system violates Council Directive 7249. Surrender your vessels and prepare for escort back to Earth. In the lead research vessel Prometheus, Captain Olivia Reyes watched the alien fleet with cool detachment. The Council had finally shown its hand, using an obscure regulation about restricted space to justify military action. They'd chosen this moment carefully, while Earth's main fleet was supposedly 4 systems away. They really don't know, do they? Her XO, Lieutenant David Patel, remarked with a slight grin. That's the beauty of quantum bridges, David. They're still thinking in terms of traditional space travel. Olivia opened a secure channel to the rest of her small fleet. Initialize Protocol Odyssey. Aboard his flagship, Admiral Kraz was growing impatient. The human vessels hadn't moved, hadn't even responded to his warning. His tactical officer, a nervous Proxian named Velk, shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations from the human ships. Weapons charging, Kraz demanded. No, sir, it's more like space itself is distorting around them. In her lab beneath the Pacific, Dr. Eliner Wright monitored the situation through their quantum network. The Meridian confrontation wasn't unexpected. In fact, they'd planned for it. Quantum bridge network is stable, she reported to James Harrison, who was currently dealing with the diplomatic chaos at Council headquarters. Captain Reyes has authorization to proceed. The Hegemony fleet's sensors screamed in alarm as reality seemed to twist. Where there had been 5 small research vessels, there were suddenly 50 ships of various sizes, appearing from quantum bridges that bypassed normal space entirely. Earth's distant fleet hadn't been systems away, they'd been waiting in quantum space, invisible to conventional sensors. Impossible, Kraz roared as his tactical display filled with new contacts. All ships, battle formations, show these primitives why the Council has ruled space for millennia. Captain Reyes watched the Hegemony ships scramble to adjust their formation. The Council forces were used to fighting with overwhelming numbers and superior technology. They weren't prepared for what humanity had developed in secret. Launch the QEDs, she ordered. Quantum entanglement disruptors, elegant weapons for a quantum age, shot from the human vessels. The devices didn't target the enemy ships directly. Instead, they created localized fields that prevented quantum-based technology from functioning. Council ships, dependent on quantum computing for everything from weapons targeting to life support, began to drift. "Status report," Kraz demanded as his flagship systems flickered. "Unknown weapon effect," Velk replied, panic evident in his voice. "Our quantum cores are being disrupted. We're losing control of all major systems." In the council chamber, James Harrison stood before the emergency session, his expression grave. "The Meridian incident, as you're now calling it, was a predictable result of your policies. You sought to contain us, control us, and when that failed, crush us. But humanity has never responded well to threats." The chamber erupted in shouts and accusations. Elder Vrix's energy form pulsed with barely contained rage. "You violated restricted space. The fleet was authorized to respond." "Restricted space?" James smiled. "With quantum bridge technology, the very concept of restricted space becomes meaningless. We can appear anywhere instantly. The old rules no longer apply." Back in the Meridian system, Captain Reyes addressed the disabled hegemony fleet. "Your ships will regain power in approximately 1 hour. Enough time for you to consider some facts. We could have destroyed your fleet. We chose not to. We could have taken your crews hostage. We chose not to. Consider this a demonstration not of our weapons, but of our restraint." In his observation chamber, Xylax reviewed the battle data with growing concern. The humans hadn't just defeated a superior force. They'd done it without causing a single casualty. It was a message, carefully crafted and brilliantly delivered. "They're not just fighting the fleet," he told Naira. "They're fighting the Council's entire system of control, and they're winning." Elinar's team was already analyzing the combat data, looking for ways to improve the quantum bridge network. The technology had performed better than expected in combat conditions, opening up new possibilities. "You know they'll try something bigger next time," Marcus warned as they reviewed the readings. Elinar nodded. "They will, but thanks to the Meridian incident, others will be watching." The Council's grip on power was based on technological superiority and the fear of consequences. "We just showed the galaxy that both can be overcome." Admiral Kraz, nursing his wounded pride as his fleet limped home, couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. The humans hadn't just beaten his fleet, they'd made it look easy. And worse, they'd done it without the gratuitous violence that usually characterized galactic conflicts. As reports of the battle spread through Council space, other species began to take notice. The humans had done more than win a military victory. They demonstrated that the Council's power wasn't absolute. In diplomatic offices and secret research labs across the galaxy, people began to ask dangerous questions. If humanity could break free of the Council's restrictions, who else could? The Council's Grand Chamber, normally a model of celestial decorum, had devolved into barely controlled chaos. Species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia now faced each other with thinly veiled hostility. The Meridian incident had cracked the foundation of galactic order, and the fissures were spreading rapidly. Commander Thexis of the Archivists Collective, a species that had long served as the galaxy's record keepers, addressed the chamber. Her holographic form flickered with agitation as she delivered the report no one wanted to hear. "In the 3 weeks since the Meridian incident, we have recorded 743 instances of unauthorized technological advancement. 42 species have formally requested access to quantum bridge research. 16 have threatened to withdraw from the Council entirely." Elder Vrix's energy form darkened with rage. This is the humans' true weapon, not their technology but the chaos they spread. They've infected the galaxy with their disorder. James Harrison sat quietly in his observer's seat, no longer the token representative of a primitive species. Every eye, sensor, and consciousness in the chamber occasionally darted in his direction. The humans had become the catalyst for change that no one had anticipated. In a secure quantum conference room, Dr. Elinar Wright met with representatives from some of the galaxy's most innovative species. The Meridian incident had brought them out of hiding, researchers, engineers, and scientists who had chafed under the Council's restrictions for centuries. The quantum bridge network isn't just for transportation, Alina explained to the gathered minds. It's a new way of thinking about space, time, and possibility. We're offering to share this knowledge freely. Researcher Zenva, a silicon-based being whose species had been denied advanced research rights for millennia, leaned forward. The Council will never allow it. They'll declare it a violation of natural order. The Council's power comes from controlling information and technology, Alina replied. What happens when that control becomes impossible? Meanwhile, in the depths of Council space, High Observer Xylax made a discovery that chilled his crystalline form. He and Naira had been analyzing communication patterns since the Meridian incident, and the picture it painted was staggering. It's not just random rebellion, Naira observed, her tentacles weaving complex patterns of concern. There's a structure to it. The humans aren't just breaking the rules, they're creating new ones. Xylax studied the data streams. Across the galaxy, species were connecting through quantum channels that bypassed Council oversight. Information, technology, and ideas flowed freely. The careful hierarchy that had maintained peace for millennia was being replaced by something more chaotic but also more vibrant. In his private chambers, Admiral Kraz received a visitor he never expected. Captain Olivia Reyes had quantum bridged directly into the supposedly secure facility, demonstrating once again how meaningless traditional defenses had become. "I bring a warning," she said simply, "and an offer." Kraz's scales bristled with indignation, but curiosity won out. "Speak." "The Council is planning a major military operation. They'll try to shut down all unauthorized quantum research by force if necessary. It won't work. It will only lead to unnecessary deaths and the further erosion of the Council's authority." "And the offer? Join us, not as subordinates or rulers, but as equals. Your tactical knowledge, combined with our technology, could help prevent a galaxy-wide conflict." In the Archivist's secure data vaults, Commander Thexis made another troubling discovery. The humans hadn't just developed quantum technology, they'd found a way to democratize it. Simple quantum communication devices were appearing across the galaxy, allowing instant, untraceable exchange of information. Elder Vrix called an emergency session of the Inner Circle. "We must act now. Every moment we delay, their infection spreads further. The natural order." "What natural order?" James interrupted, breaking centuries of diplomatic protocol. "The order that kept species from reaching their potential, that classified civilizations as primitive because they thought differently than you." The chamber fell silent as James stood. "Humanity didn't create this chaos. We just showed everyone what was possible when you stop accepting artificial limitations. The galaxy isn't breaking down, it's breaking free." Alina's team continued their work, knowing that time was short. The quantum bridge network expanded daily, connecting more species, more worlds, more minds. They knew the Council would make one final attempt to restore their version of order. "They're mobilizing their entire fleet," Marcus reported, monitoring quantum intelligence feeds. "Every enforcer ship, every military vessel." Alina nodded, unsurprised. "They still think this is about military power. They don't understand that we've changed the nature of the game itself." As the Council's fleet gathered for what they hoped would be a decisive show of force, Xylax made his choice. He transmitted his entire database of observations about humanity to James Harrison, along with a simple message. They'll never understand that their greatest mistake wasn't underestimating humanity's technology. It was underestimating humanity's ability to inspire others to dream of something better. The largest fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of Council space. 5,000 warships, representing the combined military might of the conservative Council factions, prepared for what they believed would be the final battle to restore order to the galaxy. Grand Admiral Vex, a being of pure energy contained within an ancient war frame, addressed the assembled fleet commanders. "Today we correct the greatest mistake in Council history. The humans and their allies have been given one standard hour to surrender and disable all quantum bridge technology. After that, we will show them why the Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. In the newly established Quantum Coalition headquarters on Mars, Captain Olivia Reyes stood with an unlikely alliance of species. Admiral Kraz, who had chosen to defect after the Meridian incident, reviewed the tactical displays with his former enemies. Researcher Zenva's team worked alongside Dr. Alina Wright, combining technologies that the Council had kept separate for millennia. Their fleet formation is predictable, Kraz noted, his scales shimmering with anticipation. They still think they can overwhelm us with conventional forces. Let them think that, Alina replied, making final adjustments to the quantum network. Everything is in place. James Harrison's voice came through the quantum link from the council chamber, where he was making one final attempt at diplomacy. The inner circle has rejected all proposals for peaceful transition. They're determined to maintain control, even if it means civil war. High Observer Xylax and Naira had taken refuge with the coalition, bringing with them centuries of classified council data. The council's greatest weakness, Xylax explained, his crystalline form pulsing with urgency, is their inability to adapt. They've maintained power so long they've forgotten how to change. As the deadline approached, Grand Admiral Vex deployed his fleet in an attack formation that had won wars for millennia. The sight of 5,000 warships moving in perfect synchronization was meant to inspire awe and terror. But something was wrong. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, confusion evident in their harmonic voice, "we're detecting quantum fluctuations throughout the fleet. There, inside our shields." Before Vex could respond, reality shifted. Thousands of small quantum devices, secretly planted throughout the fleet by defectors, activated simultaneously. But these weren't weapons, they were windows. Through quantum bridges no larger than a human hand, every crew member in the Council fleet suddenly saw the truth. They witnessed the prosperity of worlds freed from Council restrictions. They saw ancient enemies working together, sharing knowledge that had been forbidden. They experienced firsthand the future they had been ordered to destroy. "What is this trickery?" Vex demanded as his crew stared in wonder at the visions. Captain Reyes opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This isn't a battle, Admiral. It's a choice. Your crews are seeing the galaxy as it could be, as it should be. You can fire on these possibilities, try to maintain your perfect order, or you can join us in building something better." In the council chamber, Elder Vrix watched in horror as ship after ship stood down, crews choosing hope over obedience. "This is impossible. We are the guardians of civilization.